Welcome to the Southeast College Football Report with Phillip Jordan, the show that talks about college football in the Southeast year-round. Phillip breaks down the news, covers the stories and games, and talks to college football insiders throughout the Southeast. Now, your host, Phillip Jordan.
What's up, everybody? Welcome in to this week's edition of the Southeast College Football Report. I'm your host, Phillip Jordan, in-studio host and producer. That's One's Football on 96.9, and I'm the Auburn writer for Last Word on college football. Got a fun show planned for you guys today. Solo show this week. I know coming off the high of having Jake Crane, a lot of good feedback from that show from last week with Jake, especially on the video side of things. So we'll have some guests for you coming weeks. We're just going solo this week, coming off a holiday weekend, all that stuff. So we're going to go solo with some stuff. What we're going to talk about today will be SEC spring meetings going on. We're going to talk about a little bit some quotes and some things said by new Alabama head coach Kalen Deboer and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. And SEC coach has pretty much said who's the leader of the coaches with Nick Saban now retired. And also, we'll also do some top 5 SEC quarterbacks going into the 2024 season. My top 5. I'm sure there will be no controversy, anything there. But that is kind of what we'll be up to on this edition of the show. Of course, you can check out on all your favorite social media accounts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube at the Phillip Jordan Sports YouTube channel. Also, you can check it out over on Wiregrass Daily News, my Facebook pages, a bunch of different places. You can check out Twitter at PJordanSEC. You can check out the Southeast College Football Report. Thanks to John Garrett for the new intro. You'll hear an outro for him as we get ready to close things up here on the show today. But so we're going to talk about SEC Spring Meet, and this show is not going to be long. The plan for me is this show to go about 15, 20 minutes, get in, get out, talk about a few things, and I'll let you guys go on your day. Not kind of tarry too long here on the show. But let's start off SEC spring meetings. That is going on right now this week. A lot of interesting stuff coming out of there. And look, a lot of coaches have spoke, and I was going to go through, so get this from this coach, this, that. But look, again, 15, 20 minutes, we'll be here now. There's a lot of big nuggets, and probably throughout the offseason, we'll kind of, as we preview teams, we'll drag some of them comments from coaches that have come out. And I want to actually start things off with Kalen Deboer. He spoke to some reporters and members of the media there. Of course, new Alabama head football coach, replacing Nick Saban. Going to get some used to hearing that and seeing that with Coach Deboer. But I think he'll do a fantastic job. He's a really good football coach. So Coach Deboer got asked several different things he talked about. One interesting, and a lot of this stuff is a lot of the other coaches talked about. So I kind of give my opinions as we can kind of run through Deboer's comments. Also, just look at overall big picture stuff with these comments. He was asked about an 8 or 9 conference schedule, and it's kind of interesting for somebody coming out that relatively an outsider, a new person coming into the conference. But he said, I can hear both ends of it. He says, and I know the SEC slate that every team will have is going to be strong, and it's going to be one where you just have to adjust how many Power 5 teams or Power 4 teams you're going to play in the non-conference schedule. So I think 9 games, Power 5 games is a good number. So if it was 8, probably add 1 or 2 and kind of see from there. So I'm up in the air on it, obviously, and want to hear both from my athletic director and also the pros and cons from the conference on where it all stands. I know we'll talk about that today. And, with this too, I believe there was a time where Saban was a proponent for a 9-game conference schedule. Some people like 8. Look, and when you look at more of the bowl side of things, which really we're getting away from that with the 12-team playoff, then 14-team playoff. But at the same time, certain programs have 8 conference games, have 4 non-conference games. You can probably schedule 3 non-conference you're pretty sure you'll win. Then just win 3, maybe just 2 SEC games. Boom, you're bowl eligible. But I'm a 9-game conference guy. I think all the conferences should have a 9-game schedule. Everything should be uniform. I actually do think there should be like a national scheduling committee for all college football. Look, we're a long ways for anything like that, but we're getting closer to looking like the NFL to its way, as well as college football. But I would just say I'm for 9 games, especially in the SEC. It's a better product for television. There's those weekends where there's bad matchups, bad non-conference, and all that stuff, and you just don't see it. We won't see as much with the schedule now. I think just looking over the schedule, way it's done with Texas, Oklahoma coming in, but still at the same time, I think 9 would be way better than 8. And we see so many conferences now going to that 9-game conference schedule, but the SEC does their own thing, and that's what makes the conference great. Now, he also talked about roster size. He said the crazy thing is people always look at it and say only 11 are on the field at a time, but there's a lot that goes into development. There's a lot that goes into putting together a practice that I think is efficient. There's a health and safety piece for sure that comes into play when it comes to roster size. And of course, you had traditionally, we all know how it's always been 85 scholarship players, you have walk-ons, and a lot of coaches are too in favor of having the walk-ons on the team. And this has kind of been a big deal now, especially with the money coming in, roster size, divvying out that money. I think that's going to be a big part of this as well. I don't, and we'll have more on this too as well. Greg Sankey had some comments on this, but that's going to mention where they go. Do they limit on how big a roster you can have? Does that go up or does that go down? Availability reports. Now, this is kind of getting where teams would give out an injury report like you see in the National Football League. I understand why having some consistency is important. Sometimes it clears up even your communication to everyone that wants to know. Actually, let me go down here, and we did see some of that from Greg Sankey. He also said, talking about that, he said, we're going to have a discussion about student athlete availability reporting. Members of our staff have been working on this project really since last summer. I referenced some considerations that we would have. That doesn't mean there's going to be a decision. In fact, you should not expect a decision, but you should expect a discussion. And Greg Sankey also on the roster limit said it's a concept, not a formality yet. But on the roster availability part of things, I think we're going to see that because the more and more we get into sports betting, and honestly, having more roster availability, we all know fantasy football is a big thing. We all play fantasy football. Even a lot of people aren't any big NFL fans. They'll play fantasy football. This is something we do now as football fans. I think if you have more roster availability, injury reports, and stuff like that, you would see more. Maybe we could eventually develop more on the fantasy side, on the college football side of things. So, but I think that's coming. But that's particularly more on the betting side of things, how people want to bet on these games. And I just feel like we're going to down the road. College is going to see more and more sponsorships from DraftKings and places like that. It's all over the place. It's not taboo anymore. It's a long time it's been taboo or something people don't talk about. So I feel like that is something that will be coming. But I think you'll probably have some coaches with some pushback on that because they're going to feel like if you put that out, they're giving their opponent an edge too. That's going to be part of it. So we'll see. Again, I think this is happening. We're going to get closer. College football is going to look closer like the NFL. It's coming. It's already here, but more and more as the time goes on, you're going to see that. And then, of course, he got asked about replacing Saban. I pulled out a couple quotes he said on that. He said, I think it's all about being excited to be here because of what this program has accomplished over not just Coach Saban's time in the last 17 years, but over many decades. And they're great coaches, they're great players and staffs that have been a part of these great teams and just building on it. It's just been awesome embracing everything that Coach Saban has done for this program and really celebrating what he's accomplished over that time. And I know we have a full roster of players that we recruited specifically, yes, to come to Alabama, but also to play for Coach Saban as their head coach. So I understand that fully as well. And I want to make sure that the connection is always there and they always feel like they can reach out to the coach that recruited them in the beginning. And I think I've had some concerns about how much influence and availability and stuff like that Coach Saban would have to Alabama program. Would there be a feeling like he's looking over the shoulder of Kalen Deboer and all that stuff? But at the same time, look, keep Saban around. It really is going to endear you with the Alabama fans without a doubt. And so, yes, Saban is there. He's going to be on game day, but he is there, still office there. So the players that were recruited by him still have that access. But then you also got to look, these players are going to, a couple of years, they're going to be out of the program. That's going to be fully Kalen Deboer's players. So that won't be as much of an issue down the road. But I kind of want to see how it works out moving forward. A lot of pressure on Kalen Deboer. They always say you want to be the guy that replaced the guy. You don't want to be the one right after. If I say that right, I'm sure if I didn't say that right, the internet will get me. But hey, he's here. Someone had to take the job. I think Kalen Deboer's a terrific coach. So we'll see how that goes. I talked about, and we'll just talk about this a little bit. Who's the leader of all these coaches and everything as Nick Saban's no longer around? Lane Kiffin was asked about this. He said Kirby kind of took over and is kind of the lead now. So while Coach Stoops at Kentucky is the longest tenured coach now in the SEC, you got to look at Kirby Smart. He's got the best program in the conference right now. A lot of people looking at them, they're going to be a favorite for a national championship this upcoming season. And Kirby just that time with Saban, which Lane Kiffin, of course, he spent time. You got Sarkisian there at Texas. He spent that time. But I think it is an easy opinion and an easy, way of looking at things. That, hey, yeah, Kirby Smart is the kind of that lead guy now. So it's a very interesting how that's going to work. Some other stuff that Greg Sankey talked about. We went over his comments on availability and talking about the roster limits. Now, also said in this with Greg Sankey, SEC kickoff times to be released this Thursday. Some flex times to be announced for later in the season. The ABC ESPN deal is great in this point. All the games are under the ESPN umbrella. So now they can actually go out. They can schedule times way ahead and almost do NFL-style scheduling. And if you need to move maybe a game from 11 o'clock to prime time or afternoon or a better time slot, maybe a game you didn't think early in the year that was going to be as good, you can move that one. Or perhaps there's a game in prime time that's not as appealing anymore as you maybe thought it would be before the season. Now you can move that to an 11 o'clock time slot and bump somebody up to that prime time spot, because the prime time is always looked at as the best time. I know a lot of people are complaining about the Fox stuff with, I know, Alabama, Wisconsin being at 11 o'clock. That's Fox deal, and they're going to take the opportunity, and that's their big window. But the SEC, I feel like the 2:30 Central Time, 6:30, 7 o'clock windows are going to be the biggest ones, especially when you look at ABC. But now just being all under one umbrella, it could really now do that kind of thing. And I think the fans are going to like it because now you can plan ahead. I know one thing, when you go to a game, SEC game, you're like, okay, what time is it kicking off? Well, if it's later in the year, you buy a ticket for the season, you don't really know before that window. I mean, sometimes CBS would be 6 days before the game and before they would announce which game they were picking for the 2:30, 3:30 time slot. But now with this kind of scheduling, you can move forward with that. And you can do that. And, of course, Texas and Oklahoma welcome into the conference, the 16-team conference. These two teams are now officially official in the SEC. You know what? I'm going to take a quick break, 1 minute. When we come back, I will discuss some comments. Hugh Freeze did give an update on running back Brian Petit, and I'll give my top 5 SEC quarterbacks going into the upcoming season. You are listening to and watching the Southeast College Football Report, part of Wiregrass Daily News.
96.9 The Legend is your connection to classic country legends. But Digio Strategies has other options too. News Talk 103.9 is your source for America's top news and entertainment shows, like Rick and Bubba in the morning, Glenn Beck from 9 till 11 a.m., and Clay Travis and Buck Sexton middays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m. Sean Hannity, Lars Larson, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, and others fill your day with the latest news and views from America's top conservative voices. America at Night and Coast to Coast AM keep you company and connected throughout the night. Plus, Fox News, the Alabama Radio Network, and Wiregrass Daily News keep you informed with national, international, state, and local news. And with more musical choices like All the Hits, 106.7 KMX, Today's Country, 95.5 WTVY, and Music 107.7. Digio Strategies gives you more choices and more variety. Listen on air, online, and on our apps. 96.9 The Legend is just the beginning.
All right. Thanks for staying with the show if you're still here with us after that 1 minute timeout. Of course, I mentioned before we went to break that Hugh Freeze would update on Brian Petit. Said he's getting better. He said, honor the family. I don't want to go into too many things. Of course, you get the family that. Don't dive too much into that. But that's just my 2 cents on that part. But they appreciate all the prayers for sure. It's been a difficult time for the whole family, but he seems to be getting better each day. And that comes from AL.com, that quote. And then another part that was in the AL.com article about Freeze in his comments on the update on running back Brian Petit. He said, according to court documents, this is from the AL.com. This is not Hugh Freeze. This is from the AL.com article. According to court documents, the other Petit brother remains in critical condition with the prognosis of permanent paralysis if he survives. That was part of the court document there, which we, praying, hope, that comes out with a better outcome than that, of course. But it is good news hearing what Hugh Freeze said, that he's getting better. He did say a reporter did ask Hugh Freeze, was Brian Petit still in hospital, and said he was. We'll continue remembering him, praying for him. Hope he has a full recovery, but a still sad situation all around. And I kind of end the show more on a lighter note or a little fun note. My top 5 SEC quarterbacks. I'm not going to deep dive in all 5 of them. I'm just going to give my top 5. Hope you guys enjoy it. Let me know what you think. Number 5. I think this was probably the one that's going to shock everybody. I'm going to go Garrett Nussmeier, LSU quarterback. I think he's going to have a big year for LSU. I know Jaden Daniels, he's not the runner, Jaden Daniels. I think LSU is going to be a better run team. They're going to have to be better defensively because I have Nussmeier here in my top 5, but still at the same time, he's not going to be like Jaden Daniels and be able to pull them out of some games because the defense was just horrible last season. And they're going to replace receivers, but LSU's always had receivers, so I'm not really worried about that. So I got Garrett Nussmeier at number 5. Number 4, Jalen Milroe. This is a guy, look, he has the athletic ability to be a Heisman contender. I'm really intrigued to see how he transfers in with the offense of Kalen Deboer. But, any good coach will play to his quarterback's talent. We know his running ability. If he just gets a little bit better for the pass game, and now after last year under his belt, got better toward the end of the year, this is a guy that could make some noise and might climb up this ranking. Number 3, I got Jackson Dart, Ole Miss. Look, I was not a Jackson Dart guy going into last year. I thought Spencer Sanders was going to take it away from him at one point, but he never did. Jackson Dart played great last year and really showed a lot of things as a passer. Did not run as much this past year or last year as he did the year prior. Still has that ability there, but, man, he really transformed a passer. And the talent that Lane Kiffin's now put around him, this is a playoff team, should be, coming out of the SEC. Number 2, I'm going to go with the new guy, Quinn Ewers out of Texas. Yes, Xavier Worthy is gone. I think Isaiah Bond, the Alabama transfer, is going to do really big things there. I'm looking for Texas to have a big year. For me, Georgia and Texas are the best 2 teams going into the season in the SEC. I'm going ahead and calling it. We're at the end of May. I've got Georgia and Texas playing for the SEC title. And I know they played in a regular season, but I think these 2 will play each other once again. And then number 1, probably no shot, Carson Beck, Georgia. He's the best quarterback. He is a top 5, a first-round potential draft. I think Quinn Ewers has first-round potential too as well. But, yeah, I like Carson Beck there as number 1. So, again, Carson Beck number 1, Quinn Ewers number 2, Jackson Dart of Ole Miss at 3, Alabama's Jalen Milroe at 4, and Garrett Nussmeier at 5. So that's my top 5 SEC quarterbacks. And I would love to hear yours. What are your thoughts? I may post this up on Facebook and Twitter and all the social medias on what you guys think about that. And that's going to do it for this edition of the Southeast College Football Report. Just really wanted to go over some stuff. And like I said, I know we were heavy on what Kalen Deboer said, but I just kind of wanted to use the topics he was asked to kind of jump in or leapfrog my way into some of the bigger topics that are being discussed this week at SEC spring meetings. Remember, you can follow me on social media at PJordanSEC. The podcast is available over at Wiregrass Daily News, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. If you're on Apple Podcasts, please follow, rate, and review. Leave a review. I will read it on a future edition of the show. If you leave just 4 stars, you're just a straight-up hater. You can watch the show over at YouTube at Phillip Jordan Sports or on the Wiregrass Daily News Facebook page. You can email me at sports.phillipjordan@gmail.com. Check out my written work over at Last Word on college football. Hope everybody has a great rest of the week. Talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out the Southeast College Football Report. Keep the conversation going by following Phillip on social media at PJordanSEC. Listen to the show at Wiregrass Daily News or wherever you listen to podcasts, and watch the show on YouTube at Phillip Jordan Football.